That was really good. I didn't know you could recite poetry.
And having perhaps the better claim because it was grassy and wanted wear. Though as for that, the passing there had warned them really about the same.
Yeah, I read that. I honestly read that poem right before each CrossFit session to kind of pump myself up.
You are in a maze of twisty little passages, all alike. Time to start a fire, crack open a can of Tab, and settle in for FounderQuest.
So the Office Max near my house is closing. And so they have this closing sale, like, everything's like 90% off and stuff. Yeah. And we needed some printer paper. So I'm like, there's probably nothing left there, but I'll go and just, so there's got to be paper. Like, I mean, who buys all the paper, right? There was no paper. Like there were some pastels. Like if I wanted pink paper, then I would have been fine. Like there was plenty of that, but like it was bare. Like pickings were slim. It was amazing. And it's like, post-apocalyptic zombie, attack kind of scenario where you're like, wow, this place just looks.
And the zombies eat paper in this scenario.
Apparently.
Yeah.
Can I show you guys something talking about big box stores?
Yes.
So I ordered some socks like on Amazon. Let me show you. They're very nice socks. They're stripy socks.
Fancy.
Like I had one pair and I liked them so much. I ordered a, variety pack of stripy socks. I'm pretty happy with, how they look and everything. But then I looked at the actual box they came in and look what it has written on it.
What?
It says designed by PetSmart.
Nice.
And I don't know what to think now. Because were they really designed by the PetSmart?
Maybe PetSmart is just like the moniker of the designer.
Maybe this is someone in another country who doesn't realize that PetSmart's
it might be like an internet handle or something. Yeah, like PetSmart. he's PetSmart on IRC, like on Freenode or something.
Now, Star, aren't you concerned that the horizontal stripes or make your ankles look fat?
Well, Ben, I have very skinny ankles, so actually it's the opposite. Oh man. So how do you guys want to do this thing? Is this an actual reader question or listener question?
It is an actual listener question.
And I think we've got a couple of these lined up too. So,
well, I should qualify that. I don't know that he was an actual listener because he just sent me an email. Oh, he was a listener to the Art of Product podcast.
Oh, that you were on like a few weeks ago.
Right. And so in my interview with Ben, he asked some questions. And so this individual emailed me and said, I hope you don't mind me contacting you, but I have some questions about your startup.
Yeah, it's some great questions.
They are great questions.
Yeah. So how do you want to handle these? Should we just it's sort of a multi-part question. Should we just read it part by part and then we can jump in and give our thoughts or?
Oh, why don't you be the narrator?
Okay. This question comes from Tony Chan at cloudforecast.io. From my point of view of an early stage startup in the dev tool space and bootstrapped, there isn't much good and valuable information on customer acquisition. You know how difficult it is with limited runway when you first start. And that with marketing to developers, it makes it a little bit harder. What do you guys think about? I mean, this is kind of like how we started out, right? Mm-hmm. We market to developers. We had very limited runway. I remember, I said this before. I totally thought Ben was a baller for paying like $70 a month for our first server.
Well, the thing that I like about how Tony starts off his email to us is that he's talking about marketing developers specifically, right? So there's a lot of content out there about you need to do this, you need to do that when you're building your SaaS, your marketing and so on. But, marketing developers, that's a pretty specific group of people you're trying to target. And there are definitely things that you can do with developers that you can't do with other groups and vice versa. For example, developers do not like to have their phone ring with sales calls, right? They hate that. So that would not be something you would want to do. But one thing that we found was really helpful in the early days when we were just starting was already being a part of the community. We specifically targeted Ruby developers, Ruby on Rails developers, because we are Ruby developers. And so we knew that group of people. We'd been in that group of people for a while. We started Honey Badger in 2012 and, I'd been doing Rails since 2005. So we already knew the community. We were already a part of it. So people knew who we were and trusted us, and we already had a reputation. That was very helpful.
Yeah. As a developer, I know a little bit more about customer acquisition for developers maybe, but honestly, I've never sold a product to non-developers or into totally different market that I have no idea, like I don't know anything about. So yeah, I don't know. Like, I think if I was going to start, if I was going to pick a brand new market that I didn't really know, I would kind of try to just go into that market and try to become as much of one of them as I could, and kind of just like spend a lot of time doing research and reading the books they're reading, maybe going to the conferences that they go to, and just kind of try to see what they're about first before like deciding which direction I'm going to go.
You guys mentioned that a lot of techniques don't work for developers. And I sort of get this impression that a lot of the marketing techniques that people talk about and stuff are meant for people other than developers. Like, man, if I was going to start a custom like cabinetry shop, I could outmarket the hell out of all the other cabinetry shops in Seattle. I'm positive about that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, with developers, it's a little bit tricky, isn't it?
Yeah, like one tactic that's popular these days is this whole like email sequence where, hey, I just want to get on your radar. And then you get like 5 more emails from the person. And they're like, you must be trapped under a bus because you haven't responded to me.
I know.
Do people actually respond to those?
They must, because they keep on doing it. But like developers don't respond to that unless not in a positive way.
I don't even answer my phone for most people.
Yeah, I hate those because it's like, it's this cold email sequence. People like pull your name off of some sort of like, domain registry. Oh, pro tip, don't put your real name and phone number and whatever on your domains. I don't know if it's illegal to do that anymore, but you shouldn't do it because you'll get all sorts of, spam calls.
Yeah. Well, I think the Whois registries aren't allowed to show that anymore anyway. Like it's a big thing. Yeah. I'm pretty sure there was like a law, like a privacy regulation or something that passed at least.
Yeah. So, here's a couple other things you shouldn't do. Register a podcast with your actual email address, because man, you get some podcast spam. Like people really want to get into that podcast of yours and sell you stuff for it.
Here's another thing not to do. Don't be scraping websites for email addresses and then email them your cold emails. That happens all the time still. And so like on Honey Badger in our documentation, I always use character names from The Princess Bride. So it's really clear when we get an email to Inigo at honeybadger.io how someone acquired that email address.
We've had a few of those.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So we get emails to like Inigo Montoya.
Yes, we do.
The other day I saw the first like really brilliant like email scraping kind of, I guess, scheme you'd call it. So you guys remember Request Bin? That was the service that lets you like record inbound requests, and it would record them and then show them to you. Yeah, like API requests. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so you could use it for like testing like webhooks or any kind of HTTP request. Well, the company that had originally had that website had discontinued it because I think of like scaling, like it was getting too much traffic and it was becoming too much overhead for them to manage. But the software is open source, and there are links to Request Bin like all over the web that are now dead. So I got an email from a guy who had set up his own Request Bin, and he was scraping websites for dead links to the old Request Bin and asking the owners to change the links to his new Request Bin, basically. Oh, another thing, like I'm sure you can't do this anymore. I haven't checked. I'm sure you can't do it though, because it's too big of a hole. But you used to be able to get pretty much anybody's email address from GitHub, from their like commits. Like you could go in and do some API thing, and it would just pop you up their email address. I think people were using that for recruiters were using that. Mm-hmm. I think mine's public on GitHub. So, I occasionally get recruiter emails, but it's not like a flood. So I'm noticing something. We're like, so people are like, how do you approach marketing for developers? And we're like, we just immediately hone in on these like growth hacking, like scraping. We haven't done any of that for the record. Yeah.
I think the key is, I mean, we've talked about a lot of stuff not to do, but I think the key is if you're a developer and you want to know how to market developers, just look at yourself, look at the things that you like and things you don't like, and behave accordingly. Like developers like to have quality stuff out there, right? So if I'm producing open source software, then that builds up some sort of reputation, right? If I'm out there participating in Reddit or whatever, and I'm commenting and I'm helping people out, that builds up a reputation. And then when I have something that I want to offer to developers, now I'm a known quantity in the community, and people are more willing to listen to what I have to say. Yeah. Like
I think that the main thing about developers is that we are all very suspicious, untrusting people. No,
I am.
Well, it's kind of
That's
true, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of true.
We're skeptical. Yeah.
Yeah, people are
When
skeptical.
I said I don't even answer my phone, I meant to qualify. I meant for family members.
Oh, so personally, I think that like the thing I've seen work best for developers for marketing has been to just like you focus on creating value for people, not worrying about getting paid for it right away. You know, you see this in these products that are, say, open core, like GitLab. You can go and install GitLab, you get a lot of value from it. And then, you know, eventually they can capture some of that value monetarily when people need to upgrade, or maybe they want a hosted version of the same thing. You know, it's a similar thing with, you know, blog posts, tutorials, stuff like that, which is one of the things we've done a lot, which is you basically create this value up front, you give it out. I mean, that's kind of the ethos of open source and the community we have.
I'm not so sure that this is limited just to developers though, even. And I think like, I don't know. I feel like more people in the non-developer world are also coming around to this. Like, you know, marketing has gotten a lot shadier over the years. And it feels to me a little bit like if you're not providing some sort of like, you know, real good upfront value to people, like, I don't know, like marketing to me, like modern marketing is all about like providing that value basically for free and actually giving your audience something. So I don't know, like I know it works, you know, it works, but I wonder how long it's going to work.
What, giving people value?
No, doing it the other way, you know, using the shady marketing tactics that, you know, people.
So what's an example of a non-developer-y giving value up front thing? Are we talking about white papers? Are we talking about?
I think if you look at people who are doing ebooks, there's a lot of value. If you look at what like Nathan Barry does with ConvertKit, like he teaches about what he's learning, and he offers a lot of value to people who aren't customers. I think Brennan Dunn's done the same thing around his info products.
It doesn't necessarily have to be a physical thing either. Like it could be like membership, you know, from a branding perspective, even it could be like membership in a community or a member, you know, like a feeling that people get when they interact with your brand or something. Like it doesn't have to be, you know, it doesn't have to be like a book that you spent, you know, like months writing or something that you just have to give away for free. I feel like.
Yeah. So those, like, it's like those Coca-Cola ads they play before the movies, you know, because they get a bunch of like people, they're all happy looking, they're together like singing, and it just makes you happy, you know, and like that's the value they're providing.
Except it's
maybe.
Coke, but yeah, I mean, Pepsi is better.
Oh, dang, boy. We're going to have to fight about this.
So amusing aside, so of course my kids grew up in the Northwest, right? Because that's where we lived for the past 20 years. But I grew up in the South, the deep South, and you know, so
territory.
Exactly. I mean, you don't ask for a soda in the South. You ask for a Coke. And so
what kind of Coke do you want, Ben?
Exactly. Then they ask you, what kind of Coke do you want? And or you have to specify, like, I want a Coke, give me a Sprite, right? And so my son's asking me, we're talking about this the other night at dinner, and my son asked, well, what if you want a Pepsi? And I'm like, no, you don't want a Pepsi.
You're raising them up right.
They're like, but I'm like, do you know where Coke is headquartered? Like in the South, you don't get Pepsi.
Can I have a Pepsi, Paul?
What's the matter with you, boy? Like an example, here's an example of like, I guess of like providing value, because like in both cases, you're going to be giving something away for free. So like we talked about this last week in the marketing episode, where we talked about like sponsoring conferences, and there's the traditional way you can do it, which is like you can, you know, get a booth and you could like give away pens or something or whatever, you know, shirts or mugs and talk to people. Like that's, you know, that's nice, you know, traditional marketing, like people are coming up and talking to you and they're probably having a good interaction. But you could also do what we do, which is like, you know, go like get a bus and take everyone somewhere cool and just hang out with them. And there's no real like hard agenda to it, but it's giving them like an experience where they're like hanging out with their friends, they're making new friends. And they associate that all back with Honey Badger. And it kind of helps build our community. So That's kind of how I look at it.
I mean, you don't even have to have a bus.
Yeah, it could be anything.
You could just make reservations. Like people could pay for their own dinner.
The value that you provide people doesn't have to be costly, right? And it definitely doesn't have to be about you, right?
Yeah.
So the value you provide can be just a space where people get together and meet each other and have a good time.
You could just like take them on a scavenger hunt throughout the city or something, where you're like,
this is sounding shady, Josh.
Or, if you're a developer and you're building a developer focused tool, then obviously you are learning things as you build your tool, right? So share those things that you learn, and that's great value that you're providing for basically free, right? You've already got the experience. Might as well just write about it.
Should we move on to our next segment of the question?
Yes.
All right. I'm still going to be the narrator.
Okay.
It will be super helpful to break it down with how you guys acquired your first 10 customers, first 50 customers, first 100 customers, et cetera. And this makes it more tangible and practical. We're getting serious now.
Yeah, this is the real deal. Customer zero is us, right? So I think that's important to remember. Like it's a lot easier to get customers 1 through 10 if you can satisfy a need for yourself. If you happen to be part of a group that's interesting, as for marketing purposes go. But I think our first 10 customers were all friends, people that we knew, people that we met at MicroConf, or people that we had met through our freelancing work, people who were in the community. And we didn't just give it away, though. We asked them to pay us $1 a month so that we could test out our billing system, right? And so they had some skin in the game. But the first 10 customers, even though they're paying us very, very little, still gave us great feedback and helped us at a time when, frankly, like there wasn't much product there, right? They were giving us the benefit of the doubt.
Okay, so that's the first 10. What about the first 50? Like this, I'm not sure we're going to be able to give like super accurate descriptions because it all kind of blurs together, right?
Yeah.
I would say like the first 10 are like one thing, and then sort of the first 50 and 100 are sort of the same group of people, right? So didn't you... after we did the friends and family sort of group of people, didn't you do a mailing or something? Like, didn't you have a list? Like you were doing Rails kits.
I forgot about that. Yeah, I was doing Rails kits. And so I had an audience of people that I was talking to on a somewhat regular basis. And so I emailed them and I said, hey, you've liked my Rails kits thing. Check out this other thing that I'm doing and you might like it. And, it helps that it was an overlapping audience. And that it was relevant to those same customers.
Yeah, Rails Kits was you don't do it anymore, right?
Right, I sold that business a few years ago.
Okay, so it was correct me if I'm wrong, it was basically you sold these sort of pre-made Rails apps for like, help desk, what were some of the other ones? Like a payment process?
Software as a service kit.
I said, right, yeah, the SaaS kit.
Yeah, so people had something to start with when they built their own application, and that was we obviously targeted Rails people when we started out, and so did Rails Kits. So how many people were on that list? Do you remember? Like
it was a couple hundred, I think. It wasn't huge. Yeah. I think another thing that we did early on, like those first 10 customers, those friends and family customers, they also told their friends, right? When they saw that this was actually a good thing. And of course, they were rooting for us because they're our friends. They went and tweeted to their people, and that helped spread it, right?
Basically, as far as I remember, our first 50, our first 100 customers just came from word of mouth. It seemed like we kind of launched this thing, right? We got the friends and families in, we got our initial sort of customers from your mailing. Maybe it wasn't that many, but then after that, it kind of just sort of fanned out and grew on its own. We weren't doing any sort of paid acquisition. We weren't doing any sort of direct sales. It just kind of started.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we spent $0 on marketing for a very long time.
When did we do Ruby Weekly?
Well, it might have been in the first year or two. Yeah, but it wasn't definitely in the first 6 months. That's for sure.
Yeah, so Ruby Weekly is it's one of Peter Cooper's weekly sort of newsletters. He does like a lot of them for a lot of different languages, but Ruby Weekly was the first one. And it just is a list of links, things are going on this week in the Ruby community. And at least back then, it was like the central, place to figure out what was going on in Ruby and Rails. And it still, plays a very central role, I think, right?
Yeah, I still read it every week. Another thing that we did is we designed the app, the user system in a way that it was easy to spread via word of mouth, right? I wouldn't say it was necessarily designed with a viral loop, because that's not accurate. But we recognized early on that a big segment of our customers would be freelancers who are moving a lot from client to client, right? And also small agencies where it's a small group of developers, and we've found that a developer, once he falls in love with the tool, he wants to bring it to his next shop, right? Or the client that developer had, when that client gets another developer, then that developer gets introduced to the product that the first developer had already set up, right? So it spread a lot that way as well.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like, we don't have a viral product, but it's definitely something that people take with them. They learn about it when they come to a new job and stuff like that.
A collaborative product can kind of be viral in and of itself. Yeah,
exactly.
Right? Yeah,
exactly.
I was looking at our emails, our old emails, by the way, and I've got emails from Star about Ruby Weekly as early as like mid 2013. So there you go.
That sounds about right. Yeah. So about a year in, right?
Oh man, you've got all my old emails.
I know. I haven't gone through the old emails yet from the early days, and I was just thinking about that the other day. Like that'll be a blast from the past.
Dang, I just feel like I can never run for political office now.
I know you've said some pretty inflammatory things over the years, Star, to me via email, especially. He hasn't. I'm joking.
I've got a little bit of a different take on this question, and my take is that we've been discussing what happened for us, and this may or may not be useful for you starting your small business. I think the most important thing when you're starting a small business or launching a product, et cetera, is that from the very beginning, like, you need to know who your market is. You need to know how you can approach that market and how to talk to them. So basically, if you don't know how to get in touch with 10 or 20 potential customers, like starting out, like, you need to just record scratch, stop the presses, stop building, and figure that out, because that's a problem that you're going to have to deal with. Like, the minute you have your product done, you have to deal with this problem. And it would really suck to build a product. I know a lot of people do this, build a product and find out that, hey, like, there's really no way for me to get in touch with my target market, because, either it doesn't exist, or the normal channels involve these lengthy enterprise sales processes that we can't afford. So I think like as a business founder and as a person on an early product team, that's your job. You got to figure out a product that you can give to a market. Like, the market is the thing that you have to figure out first.
Yeah, I've seen people who on Reddit, and they're like, how do you find out what your customers want? And it's like, talk to them, right? And they're like, well, how do I find 10 people to talk to? And it's like, whoa, right? If you don't have 10 people you can talk to, then you need to fix that problem first.
Yeah, because if you are that out of touch with your target market, then your chances are you're going to build something that isn't quite aligned with what they want. And what was this book that talked all about this? Like, the whole, you've got to have your first customers and you should have them write you checks and stuff. Like, was that Lean Startup? Might have been.
I think it's been in a lot of books. And I know like Rob Walling has talked a lot about that sort of thing, like validating your market and stuff up front.
I'm not sure any of those books is entirely right, but this idea that, you've got to know your freaking market ahead of time, and you've got to know how you can talk to them.
Yeah.
That's a very important.
I don't think any business or marketing book is entirely right, because it's different for everyone. And so I think everyone is it's just what worked for them, and it all just is a way to gain experience and kind of figuring out what's going to work for you.
I think if you're in a boat where you have this idea and you have a market in mind and you have people that you have an idea you could talk to, but you don't know them yet, I think it's fine to reach out to people via email and say, hey, I appreciate your work in X, Y, or Z. You should know something about them, right? And say, I'm thinking about doing this thing. Would that be something that you would find interesting? Right. And people respond well to that. I mean, if you sent me that email, I would give you, a couple minutes to think about it, and I would respond to that email. Start building those relationships, I guess, is the point that I'm trying to make. It's okay to reach out and say, I'm just thinking about this thing, or I'd like your suggestion on this thing, to make it a low effort kind of response. But find those 5 or 10 people who will respond, and then, work from there.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, what else can people do to really get in touch with their markets? Like, we kind of just fell into it, right? Because we were building something for ourselves, and there's already lots of conferences we can go to and stuff like that. But how else can people really get in touch with those people?
You can, I mean, if they have events, you can go to the events, like you just said. But if it's a niche that people are kind of like, either, writing about or talking about a lot, like go to the places or read the things and like where they're actually, where they're developing whatever the industry or whatever it is that you're going into. I think like, I find like if I don't know anything about, a certain topic or a certain, like a market, I like to figure out how to get into their headspace, like think, learn to think like they think, like, what are they thinking about? What are they talking about? And I mean, usually you can find at least a few places where that's happening.
No, I think that's right. I mean, like, as we went into other languages and frameworks, like when you wanted to get into
I did that for
support.
Laravel. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like you went to the conferences, you read up on the community, like find out what they need and try to serve that need versus like, hey, I know everything. I'm just going to come in and do the same thing I made before,
friends
right?
in the Laravel community now that, I talk to even just, like, we're like Twitter friends and stuff now. And it's not just about Laravel. It's become about, everything, Honey Badger business and just knowing them. So yeah, I understand how they think better now that I know who they are and I've been in their world.
Yeah, it really bugs me when people have this notion that business is not an interaction between people. Like it's just some, I don't know, anonymous interaction of money and goods and stuff like that. It's really about the people, right? You make good connections with people and they respond to that. Like you make a friend in the Laravel community and you're not like being deceitful and like, oh, I'm just doing some market research. Like you're actually like interested in these people. You're interested in learning about their scene, right? And getting to know them. And that's how you build those connections and that's how you find customers.
Like, yeah, it's a lot of them are there for the same reason too. So it's, you're meeting other people who are, potentially even interested in where you're coming from just as much as you're interested in where they're coming from. And so
like, I can see how this might seem a little bit overwhelming to a lot of people, especially if you're a typical engineer, like you focus on building things. You're not really focused that much on networking and sales and all that stuff. Like, I don't even, that's not even really my cup of tea personally. But like, frankly, like if you can't go and make friends with somebody at a conference before you have a product that you're trying to sell them, it's going to be even harder later when you're trying to sell them something, because then like in the first case, you're just interested in them. You're just trying to make a connection. In the second case, you're trying to get them to do something, which is always harder. Yeah.
I think if you have no interest in developing those kind of skills or talents or no interest in people, then starting a business is not for you, right? Go work at a bank, go work, some big company. It doesn't matter. Because there are a lot of places you could work where it doesn't matter, right? You just do your work, you type it in the keyboard all day long. But yeah, if you're going to be going out there and trying to hustle, you have to be able to talk to people and be interested in people and be interesting as well.
I mean, like those kind of skills are probably going to help you anywhere you go. Like, I mean, there are the basement jobs, but
well, there are. I mean, there's some places where you can make money like online and stuff without having a huge like high touch type thing,
like drop shipping.
Drop shipping. I don't know, man. Like maybe you can make like WordPress plugins or something and sell them on a WordPress plugin site, or maybe you make apps and sell them in some sort of app store. Like there's lots of things that aren't really high touch. Or actually, we're not even talking about high touch. We're talking about just that don't involve networking and stuff like that. But I think like if you want to sort of like reach the next level, then you're going to have to, you've got to sort of step out of the office and sort of go and meet people and understand their needs and stuff like that.
Yeah. For me, it's still just it all comes back to understanding the audience. And I just personally don't know how you really do that without going in and getting like meeting them or spending a large amount of time, at least in their world, wherever that is.
Yeah. Well, and if you're doing a startup, if you're doing a small self-funded or, very small funding kind of startup, that's your advantage, right? Being able to get out there and connect with people. And that was, a lot of what brought us the success at conferences in the early days, like we talked about in our previous episode, like just spending time connecting with people and letting them know that Honey Badger wasn't some amorphous blob of a company. It was 3 guys who were building a thing, right? And that resonated with people. They were interested in that, and they rooted for our success because they connected with that. And that's the advantage you have when you are the bootstrapped, scrappy startup that like IBM doesn't have.
Okay, so we've got one more part to this question. This was a doozy. Are there any channels that you felt resonant? I had to start reading this because I felt you going in that direction, Ben. So I felt like I just really needed to push this.
All right.
So we didn't answer the question, then just be like, and there was another part. So are there any channels that you felt resonated well with the engineering audience? Maybe channels that did not work so well. Channels that are worth trying. What are your customers coming from now? What channels would you spend the majority of time on with each growth phase? So just keep on saying what you were saying, Ben. Conferences, and just start right up. Press play.
Well, we didn't start with conferences. I don't think, because we couldn't afford them really.
Right. So we started word of mouth exclusively, right? Friends and family, Twitter. We did promoted tweets, right? That worked out pretty well.
Yeah, lots of blog posts.
Lots of blog posts. Star was like cranking them out, and all the time. And I guess after we got to the point where we were making enough money to travel to conferences on Honey Badger's dime, then we started going to conferences, right? But I think I'm looking at that question, like growth phase is really sticking out to me. Like, what channels should we spend the majority of our time with each growth phase?
I know, and that's the part that just makes this question like a 1,000 times more complicated, right?
Yeah. Because like word of mouth always works, right? Or at least it has for us the whole time. Like people telling people about us has always been a great growth. So I don't think we've ever outgrown that growth phase.
Maybe the thing is we haven't accessed the growth phase.
Well, this reminds me of the book. You guys remember the book Traction that we read a while back? I can't remember the author, but it's a popular marketing book. I think the idea in that book was that there's these, there's these channels that work. They work for a certain period of time, and then they might not work. Some might not work. Some might work, long term. But the advice of the book was to pick one of, find the channel that's working now, and then work that channel until it stops working. So it didn't really put them into specific phases of growth necessarily. It's like the channels kind of drive the phases of growth. And if you outgrow one, like it might not be the same time for everyone. So you kind of just use, if it stops working, it's maybe time to move on and start trying all the other channels until you find one that is actually like getting you growth again. And it's kind of just this like never ending process of, trying something until it works, and then working that until it doesn't, and then doing it over again.
I may not be remembering this correctly, but I thought that in that Traction book, which was fantastic, it talked about like also the notion of like trying channels that you enjoy. Like if you don't like the idea of billboard advertising, don't try that channel. Right? It's okay to not try all the channels that you have available to you. I would totally recommend someone who is just starting out and like has no idea, grab that Traction book because it breaks it down. I think it's 19 different categories. And you can definitely like pick and choose from a list and just say, hey, I think I would like to try that, or I think I can do that, and that versus I can't do this other thing because it takes a lot of money, and then go from there.
Yeah, I think for us, it really has been content marketing long term, and obviously word of mouth. But content marketing is something I think that we're still growing, and that I don't see the end in sight for that. So I guess that's good news for us. We've got room to grow there.
Yeah. So I'm going to say for that other part of the question, like what hasn't worked, I'm going to say that, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm going to say like, except for Ruby Weekly, I'm going to say like advertising hasn't really done a ton for us. Do you think that's true?
Yeah, we've tried some direct advertising, and that just hasn't really shown much.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure we're very good at it. Just to clarify, it's definitely not our. I think we might. I see us trying a little bit more now that we have Ben Findley on our side, who our marketing director, who is more. That's more his. I think skill set. So we might circle back on that and see if we can make it work again. But yeah, I never I don't think we actually tried it, to the extent where we could say that it didn't, it really didn't work.
But even so, it may be difficult to ever know if it would work, just because, exception monitoring isn't something that people impulse buy when they're browsing Facebook, right? They see it, then maybe 6 months later when they need it, they think of the people that they've seen before, and maybe you're in that list now. But that's pretty much impossible to track. So I don't know.
You brought up an interesting point. Like, we have avoided like Facebook ads, right? Because people just, like you say, they're not looking to impulse buy an exception tracking system when they're browsing their Facebook feed, right? Just not a good fit for what we're doing.
But I mean, like that doesn't work for anyone really. Well, I mean, I guess it does work for some like direct, maybe products or, impulse buy type things. But a lot of the people that I've heard talk about those types of ads, like social ads, basically, is that you need to have more complex funnels, like where you're advertising like some sort of content, or like I said, like info product or some kind of content thing, even just a free blog post. But then, you click through the blog post and then there's some sort of, additional call to action or something that moves them along in the direction that you want them to go. Just because like people reading Facebook just aren't interested. They're not looking to buy something right now. They're looking to like consume content. So give them what they want. And then, I think we've just been too lazy to like set up those kind of complex funnels. And it feels to me like that our content, like most of our efforts have, like, I guess in advertising and the things that we've done have also been still centered around word of mouth, because it's not necessarily like we have this grand like flow chart of like things people have to do to like buy. We haven't been very like scientific with it. But it's been very much about like showing up and like, trying to like interact with people and like get some sort of reaction or make some sort of impression and get them to like us. And then hopefully, I think we just hope that they, like us enough to try us or to, tell someone else about us. And
so I have to take issue with this idea that people don't buy anything from social ads.
I didn't say they don't. They have it. To clarify, I said they don't buy SaaS. I said they don't buy developer software as a service developer tools.
Okay.
What did you buy from Facebook, Star?
There it is.
No, I didn't buy anything from Facebook, but at a conference, maybe 5 years ago, I talked to a guy who worked for Teespring. I think it's Teespring. They have like an API where you can design t-shirts one-off, have them mailed out. And this guy was telling me how people were making like millions of dollars by doing like Facebook ads, where it's like they're advertising like a custom t-shirt with, I'm sure you've seen these ads where it's like, nobody loves wine like Joanna, because it, matches.
So it's like long
tail,
highly targeted long tail type stuff. Yeah,
exactly. So like, nobody is as beautiful as 37-year-olds, that sort of thing.
Right. Like, or like their college or something, you could like target like campuses or something, alumni of colleges and stuff. Yeah. So, but but
I'm sure that's
those are like, I mean, that's like impulse buy. Like, I think that stuff. Yeah, that stuff is probably the better. Like, that's the sweet spot for social advertising. Yeah.
Yeah. Like a $15 one-time purchase. It's a different story than an ongoing recurring revenue kind of.
See, so I think that is the sort of thing that people imagine as like this ultimate sort of, you never have to talk to a person type of online business. And I have to say that that sort of thing has always kind of fascinated me and appealed to me. But then also at the same time, I'm like, oh, this is really yucky. I don't really want to do this. It's like, this is my mark I want to make on the world.
Well, we hate Facebook, just to throw that out there. Like, I don't have a Facebook account, and I haven't since 2014.
I don't think any of us have Facebook accounts.
No, and I think we're semi like ethically opposed to using Facebook for advertising. So at least I am. So that's another reason we haven't done Facebook.
I'm just going to double down on my belief about you do the marketing channels that you like, right? Just do the things that you enjoy. Like, if you don't like talking to people, find another way, maybe hire someone to talk to them. I don't know. But like we don't like Facebook, so we're not going to advertise
Yeah.
there. Period. The end.
That was very definite.
Yes. Putting the law down.
Never seen, never been.
But I think you have bought or sold something to Facebook Star. You've sold your attention and your data. You know, there's always an exchange with using Facebook.
Oh man, what a mercenary world view, Josh. How do you sleep at night? Well, I think we put this question in the ground. I think we've done a great job. So
We nailed it. Thank you, Tony. Thank you for
Yeah,
asking.
you know what, Tony? You're welcome.
We should send him a shirt. I will email him and tell him that we're going to do this episode, and he gets a free shirt from Honey Badger.
Nice.
Awesome. You know what that shirt is? You know what that shirt has been? That shirt is value. Value. Just giving it away.
I thought the shirt was going to say something like "You rock, Tony." You know, like the shirts on Facebook that you were talking about.
Oh,
Yeah,
we
like,
could do that.
It's like
it says Honey Badger because it's also word of mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah, nobody asks great questions like Tony.
Right.
Yeah. There you go. I guess we have to get Kyle to make us a FounderQuest shirt.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, I bet people would actually. I was going to say people would actually wear those, but that's pretty shady. Like people wear all of our shirts.
Oh, people love our shirts. Yeah.
Just on the random. This is the part where we invite people. Please send in your questions to FounderQuest.
Questions to FounderQuest.
We should work in like asking people to rate us at some point.
Oh yeah,
because I did that on Twitter and it got us like another 5 ratings.
Yeah, and I should give our Twitter login information for the FounderQuest Twitter account to Ben Finley, because right now it's just getting automated sort of updates, and I'm sure there's no subscribers because we haven't even promoted it.
There's Transistor FM estimates there's 150. Oh, you mean of the Twitter account?
Yeah, there's no subscribers.
Yeah, there's like 13 subscribers or something.
Oh, there are? Wow.
There are, yeah. There's a few. Yeah.
Okay.
No, we've got a couple of fans out there, and Transistor says there's like 150 subscribers to the podcast.
That's pretty good.
So,
well, thank all y'all.
Yeah.
Thank y'all.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
You're awesome. So please rate us and tell your friends and stuff. So I guess we've answered this question. So should we head out? Should we sign out?
We should.
Okay. Let's see. What's a good tagline?
Something like
Rick
like
a sign off. You mean?
Rick Steves, like keep on marketing. You know,
keep on.
keep. Yeah, I don't know. Keep on badgering.
Yeah, this has been the Badger Guys, and just remember, keep on trucking. I think that's good. I think that's a wrap.
Is that it? Nailed it.
All right. We'll talk to y'all later, boys.
All right.
FounderQuest is a weekly podcast by the founders of Honey Badger. Zero instrumentation, 360-degree coverage of errors, outages, and service degradations for your web apps. If you have a web app, you need it. Available at honeybadger.io. Want more from the founders? Go to FounderQuestPodcast.com. That's one word. You can access our huge back catalog or sign up for our newsletter to get exclusive VIP content. FounderQuest is available on iTunes, Spotify, and other purveyors of fine podcasts. We'll see you next week.